Jack Palance died in a painful way when his wife told everyone his secret. Jack Palance was born with the name Vladimir Ivanovich Palahniuk on February 18, 1919 in a place called Latimer Mines, Pennsylvania. Jack Palance's parents came from Ukraine and worked really hard jobs in coal mines just to survive. His early life was filled with hard times, tough work, and the constant struggle that immigrant families face while trying to build a future in America. When Jack was a young man, he worked in the mines too, and that experience changed how he saw the world forever and made him the tough person that later became a big part of how people saw him on screen. Those early years taught him a lot about never giving up, staying disciplined, and being strong. These qualities would later show up in both his acting style and how he lived his life. Before he became an actor, Palance was a really good athlete and boxer. He fought under the name Jack Brazzo, competing professionally and becoming known for being strong and fearless. Boxing gave him not only confidence in his body, but also taught him a lot about controlled anger, body language, and how to have presence, skills he would later use amazingly well on screen. His boxing career stopped because of World War II when he served as a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Forces. He got seriously hurt in a training accident, getting burns that changed how he looked and probably helped create the sharp, tough look that became his signature style. After the war, Palance decided to focus on education and the arts, studying acting and theater with the same energy he once used for boxing. He trained in New York, where he learned a lot about classical acting skills and stage discipline. He started performing on Broadway soon after, and it wasn't long before Hollywood noticed his natural talent and powerful presence. Palance had an amazing film debut in a movie called Panic in the Streets in 1950, but it was his scary performance as the gunfighter Jack Wilson in a movie called Shane in 1953 that made his reputation as one of the most terrifying bad guys in movies. With icy blue eyes, a dangerous calmness, and an unsettling stillness, Palance changed what a Western bad guy could be, not as a loud bully, but as a smart, intelligent force of evil. His performance got him an Academy Award nomination and is still one of the most famous performances in Western film history. During the 1950s and 1960s, Palance became known for intensity. Films like Sudden Fear, Man in the Attic, The Big Knife, and Attack showed his ability to show inner pain and moral conflict, unlike many actors who played villains as simple threats. Palance gave his characters deep psychological complexity, often showing vulnerability under cruelty. This depth made him different and earned the respect of critics and fellow actors alike. Even though he was often typecast as villains, Palance never saw these roles as limiting. Instead, he saw them as chances to explore the darker parts of human nature. He once said that villains were often more interesting than heroes because they had contradictions, fears, and hidden desires. His performances showed this belief, turning bad guys into interesting, sometimes sad figures. As Hollywood tastes changed, Palance successfully moved into television and international movies. He appeared in many TV films and series, including the popular show Playhouse 90 and later Bronx, proving his ability to do different things and adapt. In European movies, especially spaghetti westerns, he found new creative freedom doing bold, stylized performances that influenced future generations of filmmakers. Maybe one of the most amazing parts of Palance's career came late in life. In 1991, at the age of 72, he gave a scene-stealing performance as the tough gangster Curly Washburn in City Slickers. The role showed his sharp comedic timing while keeping the scary presence audiences had always connected with him. His performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, a triumphant recognition of a lifetime of work. By the early 1990s, Jack Palance was no longer just a legend from Hollywood's golden age. He had become a tireless, shape-shifting performer who refused to slow down or fade quietly into nostalgia. Instead, he took on a wide range of projects that showed his lasting intensity, surprise and versatility, and unmistakable screen presence. In Cyborg 2, 1993, Palance brought a cold, controlling edge to a futuristic thriller, proving that even in science fiction, his steely look and commanding voice could dominate the screen. The following year, he showed a completely different side of himself in the family comedy Cops and Robertson's 1994, starring opposite Chevy Chase. Here, Palance played off Chase's comedic timing with gruff charm and self-aware humor, reminding audiences that he could just as easily make them laugh as scare them. That same year, Palance went back to the world of mainstream comedy in City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold, 1994, bringing back the mythic presence connected with the Curly legacy. He filled the sequel with a sense of Western folklore and rugged authenticity, anchoring the film in the very genre that had helped define his career. On television, he appeared in Buffalo Girls, 1995, a Western miniseries that brought him together again with a frontier spirit he knew so well, playing larger-than-life characters with a depth earned from decades of experience in Western storytelling. Palance also used his iconic voice in animation, giving a darkly theatrical performance as the villain, Rothbard in The Swan Princess, 1994. His rich, menacing tones gave the character a memorable presence, introducing his talent to a new generation of viewers who may never have seen his earlier films, but instantly recognized the power behind his voice. As his career moved toward its final chapter, Palance continued to work steadily, choosing roles that showed both his maturity and his love for storytelling. One of his most notable late performances came in Ebenezer, 1998, a television Western version of Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. Casting Palance as Scrooge was inspired. He brought a hard-edged realism and emotional weight to the role, turning the famously miserly character into a frontier figure shaped by loss, regret, and eventual redemption. It was a performance that showed his ability to blend toughness with vulnerability even late in life. He followed this with Treasure Island, 1999, going back once more to classic adventure, and Sarah Plain and Tall Winter's End, 2000, where his presence added emotional resonance to the beloved television film series. His final screen appearance came in Prancer Returns, 2001, a gentle, family-oriented film that stood in stark contrast to the fierce villains and hardened cowboys of his youth. In this quieter role, Palance offered warmth, wisdom, and a sense of closure, an understated farewell from an actor who had spent more than half a century, leaving an unforgettable mark on film and television. During his Oscar acceptance speech, Palance shocked audiences by dropping to the stage floor and doing one-armed push-ups, proving that age had not dulled his physical strength or spirit. The moment became legendary, perfectly showing his defiant individuality and refusal to do what people expected. It was not just a stunt. It was a statement about vitality, perseverance, and believing in yourself. For several important years, Jack Palance chose a quieter, more grounded life away from Hollywood's constant attention. He settled in the rugged, open country around Tehachapi, California. It was a place that seemed to match his own personality. Strong, solitary, and deeply rooted in old-fashioned values, while the world knew him as a towering screen presence, capable of showing menace or unexpected warmth with a single look. Those who knew him personally saw a man devoted to family, privacy, and the rhythms of everyday life far from movie sets and red carpets. In 1949, at the beginning of his rise in Hollywood, Palance married his first wife, Virginia Baker. Their marriage lasted nearly 2 decades, from 1949 until 1968, and represented the longest and most defining personal chapter of his life. Together they raised 3 children, building a family amid the unpredictable demands of an acting career. Despite Palance's frequent absences for film and television work, the family bond remained strong, and 2 of their children, Holly Palance and Brooke Palance, would later follow their father into the entertainment industry, carving out their own acting careers and extending the Palance legacy into a new generation. Tragedy would eventually cast a long shadow over this chapter of his life. On New Year's Day in 2003, Virginia, his former wife and the mother of his children, was struck and killed by a car in Los Angeles. The sudden and violent nature of her death was a devastating blow, reopening old emotional wounds and showing fragility of life, a theme that often echoed through the stark, morally complex roles Palance had portrayed on screen. Though they had been divorced for many years, her passing marked the final heartbreaking close of a relationship that had once formed the foundation of his family and personal world. Years earlier, in May 1987, Palance had married for a second time, joining his life with Elaine Rogers. Jack Palance was known to the world as a man carved from stone. His hawk-like eyes, iron jaw, and intimidating presence made him one of Hollywood's most unforgettable villains and anti-heroes. On screen, he seemed indestructible. Off-screen, however, the truth was far more complicated, and in his final years, that truth came out quietly and painfully through the woman who knew him best. Behind the fierce exterior was a man who carried lifelong physical and emotional scars. Born Vladimir Palance to Ukrainian immigrant parents, Palance grew up in grinding poverty, working in coal mines before boxing his way out of hardship. Those early years took a brutal toll on his body. Long before fame, he learned to endure pain in silence, a habit that followed him for the rest of his life. "I never learned how to complain," Palance once admitted. "If something hurt, you worked through it. That's how I was raised." His wife later revealed that this refusal to show weakness became his greatest private struggle. While audiences saw strength, she witnessed constant pain, aches from old boxing injuries, damage from years of performing his own stunts, and the lingering effects of severe facial injuries suffered during World War II training, which ironically helped define his unique look. Palance rarely spoke about it publicly, but at home, the pain never truly left him. He didn't want pity, she explained. He wanted dignity. As he got older, that pain got worse. Walking became harder. Sleep came in fragments. Yet Palance remained stubbornly independent, continuing to work, ride horses, and live on his ranch, as if sheer willpower could defy time. Even when his body failed him, his pride would not. "I'm not afraid of getting old," he once said. "I'm afraid of becoming useless." The most painful chapter of his life, however, came not from his own health, but from loss. The death of his first wife, Virginia, whom he had shared decades with, and the mother of his children, left a wound that never healed. Though he remarried and found companionship again, those closest to Him said part his spirit dimmed. Forever. In his final years, his wife gently revealed what Palance himself never would, that the legendary tough guy lived with constant discomfort, emotional restraint, and an unspoken fear of dependency. He endured rather than asked for help. He smiled rather than confessed. Exhaustion. He carried everything inside. She said that was his secret. Jack Palance passed away in 2006 at the age of 87. There was no public spectacle, no dramatic confession from his lips, only the quiet end of a life, defined by endurance. The pain he experienced was not just physical. It was a lifelong burden of a man who believed strength meant silence. Yet, even in death, Palance left behind a powerful lesson. True toughness is not the absence of pain, but the courage to live fully despite it. And perhaps his greatest performance was not on screen, but in how fiercely he protected his dignity until the very end. As he once said, all you really own in this world is your word and your backbone. Lose either one and you're finished. Jack Palance never lost either, but he paid for that strength in ways only those closest to him ever truly knew. On November 10th, 2006, Hollywood lost one of its most unforgettable and commanding figures when Jack Palance drew his final breath after suffering a stroke. The legendary actor passed away quietly in California with his beloved daughter, Holly Palance, by his side, a poignant and deeply human ending to a life that had so often been defined by towering strength, piercing intensity, and an unmistakable screen presence. In his final moments, Palance was not the fearsome villains or rugged anti-heroes audiences had come to know so well, but a father surrounded by family, closing the final chapter of a remarkable journey. Jack Palance's death marked the end of an era that stretched across decades of film and television, during which he carved out a career unlike any other. From westerns and war films to thrillers, dramas, and even comedies, Palance brought a raw, electrifying energy to every role he played. His chiseled features, commanding voice, and ability to convey menace or vulnerability with a single glance made him one of Hollywood's most distinctive performers. Even as trends changed and generations shifted, Palance remained unforgettable, a symbol of old-school toughness, combined with surprising depth. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.